Hello, this is Rico Cavella, and this is your Ageless Body Self-Care Guide, Operations Manual for the Human Body and the Mind. And the title of today's session is Warrior Mom's Mindset. You know, I can't even imagine how hard it is to be a mom, especially in these days. It's so amazing how hard it is to be a mom, I think. And so I think this is going to be a great session, for all the moms out there. And we have a great expert today. Her name is JJ Virgin. She is a triple board certified nutrition expert and fitness Hall of Famer. She's a passionate advocate of eating and exercising smarter. And JJ and her team have helped people stay fired up and healthy as they age so they feel the best they ever have at age 40. She's also the author of 4 New York Times bestsellers, The Virgin Diet, The Virgin Diet Cookbook, JJ Virgin's Super Impact Diet, and JJ Virgin's Super Impact Diet Cookbook, and her latest book, Warrior Mom. And that's what we're going to talk about today for all you moms out there. So JJ, thank you so much for being here.
All right, it's moms and dads, Rico. It's not just moms.
Oh, it's dads too? Oh, okay. Well, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah, dad's got to deal with it too, right?
Yep. It just
Okay.
it's not so great in the title, but I'm like, it definitely,
Oh, yeah.
definitely story involves both.
Okay, well, your dads can listen as well then. Okay, good. Okay, good. Well, okay, so I think the first question should be really, what inspired you to write Warrior Mom?
So you talked about my background of really being in health, and about a month before The Virgin Diet was coming out, that was my first big book, my then 16-year-old son, my boys were 15 and 16, and I was a single mom. I was really the primary support for my kids financially. And my 16-year-old was out walking to a friend's house at dusk, and he got hit by a car.
Oh.
And we're not sure what happened. We estimate the car was probably going 40 miles an hour. All we know is that a neighbor drove up after the fact, saw my son lying in the road in a heap, saw a woman get out of her car, gas, get back in and drive off. And he called 911. My son got airlifted to the local hospital. We were fortunate to, my ex-husband and other son drove by the scene, saw what was going on, knew my son had been out walking, asked the police what was going on. And the police said, oh, a boy got hit and airlifted to the hospital, and he looks just like him. Because my 2 sons were like a year apart, Irish twins. So we raced to the hospital. We get there, the doctor tells us that my son has a torn aorta and it's going to rupture sometime in the next 24 hours. This is an injury. This is what killed Princess Diana, kills 90% of the people right on the scene.
Wow.
And he also had multiple brain bleeds. He was in a deep coma. And they said, he needs a special type of surgery that we don't do here. And challenge is he'll never survive the airlift that you need for him to get to the next hospital. Even if he were to survive the airlift, he's not going to survive that surgery. And even if he was able to survive both those, he would be so brain damaged it wouldn't be worth it. Wow. And my 15-year-old son's looking at the doctor saying this, and he goes, well, maybe there's a 0.25% chance he'd make it. And the doctor said, that sounds about right. And Bryce, my 15-year-old, said, we'll take those odds.
Wow.
And he's like, it's not 0. And, here's the thing, like, you knew for sure he'd die there. There was a tiny chance the other way. All we needed was a sliver of hope there. So he was airlifted to the next hospital, where we got like the godsend doctor, the doctor you want, who basically at 2 a.m. assembled 5 surgical teams, the neurosurgery team, the orthopedic team, the cardiothoracic team, the trauma team, and the pediatric trauma team, gets them all together, gets a hold of a stent put in his, to repair his aorta, that somehow gets airlifted there at 5 a.m. We walk in, having driven through the night, and he's like, don't worry, I got this. I do this all the time. I'm like, okay, well, if you say so, because obviously at that point we don't even know if my son's going to have survived the airlift, and he's telling us everything's going to be fine. So a couple hours later, he comes out and he says, well, I'm all done. He's fine.
Wow.
But then he says, now, I don't know if he'll ever wake up. I'm the plumber. That's not my part. You have to talk to the neurosurgeon. So you know, the neurosurgeons give us a lot of doom and gloom, and the orthopedic surgeons give us the whole, I don't know that he'll ever walk. And I'm standing in the hospital in the ICU holding a finger, holding Grant's finger, because literally, like, he had 13 fractures. He's got casts, he's got road rash, he's got glass still sticking out of parts of his skin. And I'm holding this finger. And I said, Grant, I need you to fight. Like, I got this. I'm going to call in everyone I know to help. We can get you to be better than before the accident, 110%, but I need you to fight. You got to fight. And your name means warrior, and you got to fight. And so, and he squeezed my little finger there. And I'm like, all right, he's in there. And I just, from that moment on, Rico, I just went, okay, I'm going to act as if, and I believe that thoughts create. And I'm just going to say, what do I need to do to help get my son to be better than he was before the accident? What do I need to do? It was like complete obsession, focus on getting him to 110%. Now, realistically, and I hate realistically, because you know, if we go by that, none of the stuff that's ever happened in my life would have happened, right? But you know, I believe thoughts create, and the only limitations are the limitations in your mind. And so I just was like, you know, the doctors are telling me, well, we don't know if he's going to make it through the night. Well, we don't know if he's there, like all that stuff. And I go, listen, here's where he's going to be. And I need you to be open to that possibility. He's going to run again. He's an athlete. He's going to be like, you know, super smart. So we're just going to all go there. And if you feel anything different, at least don't say it around where he can hear, because I'm going to manage this environment, stay super positive. All I want him to hear is he's going to be better than before the accident. And, you know, there's this whole idea, well, he's in a coma. He doesn't know what's going on. But he said to me later, he said, Mom, the gray man came down and asked me if I wanted to live or die. Wow. And I kept hearing you speak. And even though it's so much nicer over there and it's beautiful and I wanted to stay there, but I kept hearing your voice. And so I came back.
Wow, how cool.
And I just say that because it's so important if this happens to you. And you've heard these stories, you know, of people in comas, but we've got to manage our environments. We need to do it for ourselves. You know, right now, things are so crazy, and it could be very easy to get into a negative downward spiral of everything between, you know, the financial and the health and everything else. But we can manage our environment and stay positive. And
so yeah, it really is your mind. You know, what I heard from your story was it started with your son, Bryce. He had the warrior mindset at first, right?
Oh yeah.
And then you
we taught them to be this their whole life. You know,
yeah.
This is what's so important is early on when I was 30, I had a mentor. And I thought she was going to help me be more successful in business. But the first 6 months of working with this mentor, all she ever taught me was how to manage my mindset. She said, if you can't fix this, like if your mindset's not spot on, you'll never be successful in business, right? Exactly. And so it's what my kids knew too. My kids knew that they could do whatever they chose to do, so Bryce looked at that doctor that first night, Mr. Doom and Gloom, telling us everything that wasn't going to be, and he's like, he doesn't even see it. He saw 0.25%. The rest of the world would have seen 99.75%. It's not going to work. He just said, I just need this little bit. It's not zero.
Yeah, this is such an important message. And you and I both know, you know, both of us being, you know, fitness coaches and trainers all these years, we always wonder why so many people struggle with, you know, with exercise, staying with a healthy exercise program and a healthy diet. And so we realize it's mindset first. If you don't change somebody's mindset, forget about the rest, right?
Well, they'll just go back. You know, it's interesting, when I wrote Warrior Mom, the publishers were like, but you're a nutrition and fitness person. You're not a mindset person. I go, just FYI, like, every single thing I've ever done, all my work starts with mindset before we do anything else. Because what I learned early on is if you don't help change how someone sees themselves, because you create everything twice, right? The first in your mind's eye and then, you know, in the physical realm. And if you do not change how someone sees themselves, if they start getting healthier, fitter, they'll sabotage it because they don't really believe it. They have to believe it to see it. And I remember, you know, multiple clients like would start to gain weight, get healthy, and then all of a sudden they would just like sabotage it. And so I realized I had to start with their mindset and self-image first. They had to mentally become that person. And then the rest is actually fairly easy, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And that goes with everything. In order to be successful in every aspect of your life, it's all about your mindset. You got to believe in it. And, you know, I just always try and you know, the more I'm realizing it myself, we are so much more powerful and we have so much more potential that we don't even realize how much we
Right.
can accomplish. Yeah.
We
Okay.
are
So
stronger than we think. Right,
absolutely,
Rico?
no question
Yes.
about it. And you're such
Yes.
a good example of that. So let's talk about then, so how do you help people develop a positive, resilient mindset?
So it's just like building muscles.
Okay.
You know, let's think about it. Your mindset's a muscle. Carol Dweck from Stanford talked about this. She wrote this book about growth mindsets and thinking about there's really two types of mindsets. There's the fixed mindset. That's the person who thinks life happens to you,
Mhm.
versus the growth mindset where someone thinks life happens through you and for you.
Mhm.
And so if we believe that our mindset can be developed, just like going to the gym and working out and building muscles, what do we know about getting stronger? You have to put your body under stress, do a little damage, your body repairs and gets stronger. Same thing here. You look at the most successful people at life. They are not people who had it easy. Like I have so many amazing, successful friends, and universally, the thing they have in common is they faced some really tough stuff in their life. And every time they did, they got stronger, right? You look at it, it's like been research and development. When Grant got hit, it was not my first challenging time.
Right.
And so fortunately, you know, I'd had multiple opportunities throughout my life, just like we all do, to show up, right? And each time you show up in a challenging situation, you get better at handling challenging situations.
Yeah, it's like our challenges are truly our blessings, right?
They are. It was interesting. This mentor who I had at 30, one of the things she taught me is that there are no problems. There are only challenges. And she also taught me I could never come to her with a challenge until noon, because she said, usually you're going to figure out the solution by then anyway, and you won't
Yeah.
bother me.
Yeah.
But it's so much so that I never talk about, like, to me, I never say the word problem. It's like a swear word, you know, I just
Yeah.
always think of them as challenges. And quite often when you really start to look at those challenges, are they opportunities? Like lately with everything that happened with the quarantine, I started to look at this and I went, all right, you know, what are the opportunities here? Well, the opportunities, like think of the people that we can now reach, because now people just go, oh, okay, I don't have to physically go see that person. I can just do this on Zoom. We're starting to connect and have so much bigger, broader global impact than we would have had before, because you know, whereas before a small group of people would show up for Zoom things. Now people are like, this is the way we need to do it.
Exactly.
You know, so it's changing the industry. I mean, I think of just being able to be in quarantine with my adult sons and then my adult bonus daughter has been like the biggest gift. I wouldn't have gotten to do that otherwise. We never, like, try to trap your adult children with you for, you know, they're like, we're out of here, you know, but instead here we are at home and we are, honestly, like, I didn't want to tell this to people because they're like, how are you doing? I'm like, great. You know, we've got great healthy food. We're all sharing cooking and we're having fun and we're playing games. And we just like had a great time together. We had time that, I mean, the biggest gift I could ever think, time I never thought I would get with my adult kids.
Yeah. But I think though, if you probably have small children, there's some pretty good challenges. So you do got to be a warrior, right? You got to be a
Oh
warrior
yeah.
mom.
I will tell you, one of the things I thought as this happened is like, whoa, boy, I'm very thankful my kids are older. Like my friends, they're like,
Yeah.
my kids are 3, 4, and 5. I'm like, oh my gosh, holy
Oh.
moly, you know, and no help. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to work. So
Oh my
yes,
goodness. Yeah.
hats off to all of that. And, you know, but again, with all of these things, there's always going to be challenges. And it's really up to us to how we are going to take them on, right? And I'm not saying, hey, each of these things you go, oh, I'm so lucky. Like when my son got hit that first night, I was not sitting there going, wow, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to get stronger and be better because of it. The first night I was freaking out, right?
Yeah.
But then I went, well, this is not going to help him. And I'm not going to be able to do this if I cannot get my act together here. And so I let myself have a little pity party, and then I got on with it because,
Yeah.
I had a life to save, right?
Absolutely. One thing I always like to tell people, just think of the word mindset. It's such a cool word. It means that you can set your mind. You have control over your mind. You can actually set your mind. So that's I think that's the message that you're given, and we're giving to people, that you have control over your mind, and you can set your mind, and you just have to make up your mind to set your mind, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's perfect. I never actually thought about mindset as the word.
Yeah. So you can set
yes.
your mind. You have control over that.
Yes,
So
you do. And I think we don't that we look at a situation like, the situation with my son, when you really think about it, is one where you feel completely out of control.
mhm.
And there were so many times like he faced life and death situations throughout that journey, but I knew what was in my control. What was in my control first was absolutely managing my mindset. And I did it every single day, right? And then where I could get help and support for him and for me. So, there's a lot more within our control than we realize.
Yeah.
And again, so much of this, especially when you look at things like stress, so much of it really is just our response. It's our perception. And so how can you make those shifts? And I started every single day as I was going through this. This is just part of my life, is you pull out a journal every morning, write down 3 things at least that you're grateful for.
Yeah.
And the fact you woke up, you got one right off that, there's a gimme right there, and if you woke up and you weren't, say, living under a bridge, now you got another one. So, there's, you can always find these things. And ending the day with 3 things that went well, 3 little wins. And they're always there. It's so interesting because, that mentor at 30 made me wear a rubber band around my wrist for a couple of weeks. And anytime I thought a limiting belief or a negative thought, I had to snap that band,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
we tend to forget all these little great things that happen, and we just focus on that, like the person that sent us that mean email or the bad thing, like whatever, instead of going, oh my gosh, like this happened today, like this amazing thing happened today. And even if they're just little things, they add up.
Well, it's like you mentioned earlier too. It's all about not focusing on whatever we would think of as the problem or the challenge, but focus on the solution. But let's talk a little bit about your book. And so as you go through your book, what's like the first thing that well, I think we probably mentioned that we got to convince people that, first of all, they can do it and they have control over their mindset. So then stuff for people who are kind of skeptic and they think, well, yeah, you could do this, but maybe I can't, so how do you get people started on the path of getting control of their mindset?
Oh, I had a great statement from my mentor early on. And she said, whenever someone says something, well, like, sure, you could do it, but blah, 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 right? She goes, always put after that phrase, so I don't have to. So I don't have to. So I don't have to. The point is, there was nothing special about me. The only thing special about me when I got into this situation was that I'd had the most amazing experience being able to train with this really renowned mindset coach, but that information's available everywhere. And it's, heck, you can, right? So there's so much great mindset training everywhere. And it is something that you need to do every day. And then the only other special thing about me was that I'd gone through a lot of really hard things, and I'd gotten stronger from them. And so that was my frame. It was never that, and this is another one I love, is there are no victims, only volunteers. When I looked at these things, I always looked at, okay, so this happened and, what do I need to do here? So when I looked at the situation that first night, and I think this is a really important starting point for anybody, and it's interesting, I'll frame it. I actually sent out an email to my community a couple of years ago. And I said, if you're not where you want to be in your health and in your weight, why not? Just an open-ended question. And I thought I would hear back because of the books that I've written. I thought I'd hear it was just sugar or bread or cheese or pizza or whatever, right? And so I'm like waiting for that. And that's not what I got back. What I got back was because I don't feel good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. That first night when I got through the initial, like all of that, and after he'd gotten through the surgery and everything else, so it was like, you know, the first real night in the hospital, 24 hours in, and I'm standing there and I'm like, all right, my son's going to be 110%. That's my focus. That's what I need to do. I have a book coming out in a month. If that doesn't go, I'll be bankrupt and I will not be able to do the things I need to do to get my son to be 110%. And, you know, and I have my other son too. And I'm like, so how do I pull this off? How do I do this? And I went, I have to be at the top of my physical and emotional game. So in order to help my son get to be 110%, I better be too, which means that my self-care has to be at the top of the list. And the first thing I really realized, especially since I've worked in weight loss for 30 plus years, is when you work in weight loss, it's like the craziest industry to be in because everyone's super excited to get started tomorrow, right? Like you're like going, they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
I'll do it tomorrow. And I'm like, tomorrow, you know? And I remember sitting there that night, because here I have this, you know, Virgin Diet book coming out in a month. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I've got to show people that you can't do this tomorrow. If I'd walked into this situation and I hadn't been at the top of my game in my health, I would not have been able to pull this off. You cannot walk into the ICU sick. You can't do it. And I was now under enormous stress, but I was ready for it. And it really reframed the urgency of getting my message out to the world. And it really made me realize that for so many of us, we put ourselves at the last of the list, you know, in terms of things that we have to do each day. You know, you have to take care of the kids and you have to go to work. And then all of a sudden at the very end is like, oh, you know, get some sleep, exercise, take some supplements, eat healthy. And you just tend to forget about all of that because it's the end of the list. And so my first thing that night in the hospital of looking at what do I need to do to pull this off is I went, my self-care has to be the number one thing. I cannot get sick and walk in here. I can't make life and death decisions if can't, you know, think straight. And so I made sure that I was getting my sleep, 8 to 9 hours. I was really making sure I got at least 8, but if I got 9 every once in a while, it was a bonus. Doing my exercise, even if that meant sometimes just running up and down the hospital stairs, eating healthy. And those were non-negotiables. And I think that if we start a mindset of self-care is selfless, it's one of the most selfless things we can do. Think about right now with what's going on. You know, we've got a pandemic going on as this is being recorded. And one of the things that you see is that for the majority of people, those people walking with pre-existing conditions, especially things around diabetes, hypertension, et cetera, are high risk. So what if, as this whole thing started, we went, okay, you know what? Prevention finally just got sexy. Finally. Finally. Because it's probably the toughest sell ever, right?
Yeah,
you know,
no kidding.
It's one of the things I coach a lot of doctors on their businesses. And I'm like, forget trying to sell prevention. No one wants it. But maybe now, you know, yes. And so what does that mean? That means we better put self-care at the top of the list because we are being called right now and it's an enormously stressful time. And are you ready? Because, you know, hey, the one thing we know for sure, whether it's this pandemic, whether it's financial stuff, whatever it is, we are going to be challenged. And are you ready? Right? I mean, can you step up? Because I think you're never better than when you're challenged. But you wouldn't go say, hey, I'm going to go run a marathon, but I'm not going to train. I'm not going to train for it. Screw it. You know, I'll just go. So, right. So right now we're in a marathon really with what's going on. So
JJ, that was so well said and so beautifully said. And that's exactly right. So that's the whole concept of this project that we're doing right here. It's a self-care manual, how to really learn how to take care of yourself so you'll be able to be like you were, strong because those kind of situations are going to occur in your life, you know, and life is fragile.
We know that for sure, right?
We know it for sure.
you know, it was funny when I was writing that book, I'm like, who's this for? And then I realized, well, it's for the caretakers out there. And who are the caretakers? Everyone. Like,
Everyone.
you know, it's either going to be you caretaking for your parents, your spouse, your children, you know, a loved one. But one thing I know for sure is that we're all going to be faced with these challenges. Stuff is going to come up. It's going to get hard. You want to be ready for it, you know, and that, like that night in the hospital, it was like, oh my gosh, I am so thankful that I was ready for this, that I wasn't walking in 30 pounds overweight, you know, exhausted, stressed out, anything else. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off.
Yeah. JJ, that's such a great message. And that's such an important message. So I hope you really got that you got to be ready, and taking care of your health should be the number one priority. You know, that's got to be your mindset. So I like to say, I want to remind you that there's a PDF that comes along with this video, with this program for you. So we really encourage you to go there and check out JD's website and all the things she has to offer. She has a ton of information of different products and books and trainings. And so we really encourage you all to really connect with our experts and take it a little bit further. And we promise you that if you begin to incorporate some of the things that you're learning from our experts, especially like JJ, things that she just told you, it's gonna just take your life to another level, and it's really going to improve your health and well-being, and make you, like JJ said, make you ready, you know, ready for life, right? So JJ,
take on higher and higher challenges in life. And
that's right. And that's why we're here. I believe that's really why we're here. We're here for all these challenges. So just to end, what would you say would be, what's the last thing you want to say? Maybe one or two big tips that you want to give people to get them excited to get started.
You know, what's so interesting about all this stuff is, you know, people tend to want to make this 180-degree change, but what I find works best is just to take one thing, incorporate it, get the next thing, incorporate it, and then all of a sudden you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I made this huge change, but you never felt like it just became the new you. So within everything that you're doing, it's like I'm sure you've got exercise pieces in there and diet pieces in there. Just pick one thing to get started and own it. And then when you own it, add the next thing. And one of the easiest things I tell people to do is, like, in the morning, get up, get your journal out, write down 3 things you're grateful for. During the day, if you start to get a little bit irritated, frustrated, freaked out, shoot a text to a friend and tell them what you appreciate about them. Because the minute you do that, that friend's going to shoot you back a text and go, I love you. You know, so it's like a 2-for-1. Then end of the day, you're with your family, or call a friend and talk about 3 great things that happened that day, little wins. I call this whole thing, you know, G in the morning, gratitude, A during the day, appreciation, end of the day, little miracle. That's your jam for the day. So simple, 5 minutes. But that alone starts to shift your physiology, man. Gratitude is one of the most amazing things for lowering anxiety. Absolutely. Right? I mean, it's so simple and doesn't cost anything. So start there, and just, you know, I find with a lot of people, when they decide they want to get healthier and fitter, they want all of it right now. They forget that, like, it's been years and years of not being, and they think they can turn it around in a day.
Right.
You can turn it around remarkably quickly, but, you know, rather than overwhelm yourself and then you get into complete, you know, doing nothing, just start simple and do one little bit at a time.
And you have to start today, not tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
That's it. That's the message. Start today. Be ready and start today.
Yes.
Thanks very much for watching. JJ, that was so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.